What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Young Money Hackers podcast. I'm Charlie, you're here with HD. We talk about all things property and financial freedom. What's going on, Handol? It looks like you're having a pretty chill time there.
Yeah,
love it. Onesie.
Yeah, loving life.
You're on a boat?
Yeah, I'm on a boat at the moment. And just in the this majestic islands of Maldives, just on this yacht, just hanging out for the next 2 weeks. This is home. And I love getting wet underwater, and I love to get wet in style. So yeah, love my diving, and but property never stops, and I love talking about property. So here we are, guys. We're back online, and love to talk more about it. Today's topic. What is today's topic, Chiz?
Yeah, so we're talking about what we would do if we had to start all of it again from scratch. Knowing what we know today and have the results that we have today, what would we do if we were just a young person in our early 20s, whatever age you are, or even 30s, whatever, starting all over again with the strategies that we know that are available to us today in the current financial climate. So that's what we're going to be touching on. There's so much to unpack. There's so much opportunity all the time. Handol, you're looking amazing in that pink onesie.
Thanks very much.
Just had to say that. You look majestic as fuck.
This is the best thing ever. Like, this keeps you dry and warm. It's everything. It's so good. I mean, property is amazing. It's one of those things. If you can unlock it well at the beginning, then that'll really set you up. To have the freedom that you want, to be able to travel, to be able to have that passive income, and really contribute your life and your time to your loved ones and the things that really matter in life. And so that's why, like, just tying the first knot the proper way is so important. I see time and time again people just like, some of them just go out there and do it, which I love. You want to take action, and that's your way of learning. Great, but the first knot is so important in property, and this is something that you probably agree with, Charlie, as well, because you've got a property empire yourself. And the thing is, so many people get it wrong, and that's why I think we want to talk about this in today's episode, that people, if we were to do it all over again, I mean, it's not like we got here in a straight line, right, Charlie? We got here with various trial and error over the last 10 years of investing. We both started in our late teens investing into property. And thank God we have such a wonderful portfolio, being able to have the freedom and the passive cash flow that we have right now, which is great. But at the end of the day, we want to share that information with each other, especially with the young money hackers who are so faithful and loyal followers of ours. And you know what? We really want to talk about the things that we would do differently. So I'll kick us off. For me, what I would probably do differently if I was starting all over again is I'd probably humble myself a little bit more. I mean, the thing is this, like, when you start something off, you know everything. When you're 19 years old, you know everything until you realize you know less and less and less and less. If only people did the other way around, that 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds or early 20s, or even if you're starting out your journey, you're starting out, that means you don't know. When you don't know, you got to know. And how do you know? Well, I wish, if I was starting out again, that I would have found my mentor earlier on. Because here's the thing, don't share your dreams with people who can't dream bigger than you. Because at best, I
agree with that. And I also think that it's the tall poppy syndrome in Australia is rife. I think it's really hard to share your goals and ambitions with people. And them support that. They will usually, what I found in my personal experience anyway, is that a lot of people will try and poke holes in what you are trying to achieve and accomplish. So finding people that are like-minded, finding people that want what you want essentially, or have what you want, is going to be your best bet, getting the right mentor and the right information with people.
Exactly right, man. And I think people, if you want to share your dreams to somebody, they must have achieved what you're dreaming by a mile larger than what you're dreaming. If they can't dream bigger than you, if they can't achieve bigger than you, there's no point sharing your dreams with them, because they're only going to cut you down. You're right. And it's like asking somebody who doesn't know how to swim to save you as you're drowning underwater. Like, it's completely psychotic. It's insanity. So if I were starting off early, I would find myself a person who has done it before, and I would I would just listen to everything that they're saying, and I would do everything that they're doing. Because Charlie, even though we've started a long time ago, I'd say it's only somewhere in between where we started and where we are that we found who we have found to truly be putting ourselves where we are right now. And you know, that relationship is what takes us where we are. Yeah.
Because we were looking for it, right? Another thing to touch on, like to piggyback what you're saying, is I would have humbled myself more when I was 19. So my journey started in commercial property, right? I literally worked my ass off from the age of 16 to build up that deposit. Now, I thought I was too good at 19 and 20 years old to go live in a share house with 4 or 5 other people and use the house hacking method that I've mentioned on other social media channels before. But if I could go back again, I would definitely use that strategy, because there's so much opportunity there. Like your living costs essentially become free. And if you've bought the property, you have the benefit of that cash.
So that leads to our second point, I guess. It's all about strategy. So what I would do is sort of leaning on the first point, which is to find a mentor, and then implementing a strategy that the mentor has done. I mean, I would follow on that. I think people out there, like we've experienced this as well with a lot of conversation we've been having with our followers, is that I feel that people destroy themselves with what they know than with what they don't know. So, you know, a lot of times I tell people, guys, what you know about property doesn't work. That's why you're here. You know, if it worked, then you wouldn't be listening to our podcast. If it worked, then you wouldn't be following us. You wouldn't be doing all this and that. If that it doesn't work, which means what you hear or what you know about property isn't working. So to actually...
it's the saying, it's like, there's a saying that goes like, it's not what you don't know, it's what you know that ain't so. It's just like a cringy
but it's so applicable, right? Because there's so much buzzword and chatter about properties. You know, it's like, oh, there's so much noise. You know, like, oh, you got to do this, or you got to use a buyer's agent. You got to go and buy this area, or this area will go up twofold in 1 year. There's just too much noise, and there's not really an exact strategy. And the best place to get the strategy is from a mentor who you know have achieved it and who you know will be able to implement a strategy that actually works for you. You know, the house hacking method is a wonderful one. You know, if we're talking about strategy, what I would do differently at the beginning is that I probably wouldn't focus on something that I dream of. You know, buying a house isn't about, you know, chasing a lifestyle. Buying a house should be about chasing wealth, but too early on in our lives, when we're 19, 20 years old, and, you know, even when you're 30 years old, we look around and go, oh, you know what, I want to buy this. I want to live in this thing. You know, we watch social media and I want to live that. You know, it happens too early. You should focus on wealth first. Wealth mindset will give you the lifestyle, whereas a lifestyle mindset will destroy wealth as well as a lifestyle at the same time. So then I would be looking at strategies that would generate wealth first. So what are those strategies? If I had my time again and I was on something like, I don't know, 60, 80, 100K a year in income, you know, I'd save up, you know, the first 50, 60 or 70K or so, and I'll be using that to then do like a burr method, right? You know, like your renovation, you know, you buy something that's a bit subpar, you do your renos, you do your rentals. And of course, doing this, so many things can go wrong. So you have to do it right, and you need to know how to exact a strategy. But I think that'll be a good tunnel to look down on. We've really nailed that art at Young Money Hackers, right? And we love doing this over and over again. And what I love about this strategy is that once you nail this strategy, is the last part of that strategy is repeat. You can repeat the system to then continually generate a series of cash flowing properties, which will then build your portfolio and equity over time as well. And like the gap between the first and second property will be a longer gap than, you know, gap between second and third and fourth, which then really snowballs your process as well. But far too often I see people do this method and they get it wrong as well. You know, it's something that needs to be learned, something that needs to be, it needs to be perfected. Obviously, and having a mentor, which is our first point, would definitely help with that. But, you know, I'd start off with that. And I wouldn't go and buy at an affluent suburb or buy a nice looking apartment. I'd look for a problem to solve. That's what I'll be doing. And that will be the most ideal strategy for a young person for sure.
Right, so you'd look for problems in the market, gaps in the market where you could slide in and offer the value.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Fill demand, exactly. Yep. Really good. I love that. And I think another thing that I would do differently is, well, this is something that I see a lot, is that people try and optimize for tax saving. Now, this is really good. It's good to do that, but it's not good to do only that. I always try to optimize for the maximum growth, maximum wealth long term, rather than focusing on just the tax side of things. Like negative gearing is a great example of people getting into a property because they can save the tax benefit on the expenses of the property. But really, like, the only way to make tax-free income in Australia is to buy a property under 2 hectares in size, live in it as your primary place of residence, improve the value through a reno, move out of that property, rent it out, okay, for the cash flow, then use the 6-year absence rule that applies. So that means that you can sell the property within a 6-year period free of capital gains tax. And from that point, you can move back into the property or you can sell it free of capital gains tax.
Yeah, that's an amazing strategy. The thing about that is, though...
Whoa, hold up, young money hackers.
Are you sick and tired of the rat race and want to start building wealth with property and generate passive income?
Then come drop us a follow on Instagram and DM the word hackers.
The word what, Charlie?
The word hackers, like young money hackers.
Okay, wait, Charles, what was our handle again?
At young money hackers.
You heard him, everyone. DM us the word hackers to learn more about property investing. Now back to the podcast.
Now the thing is, that's a good strategy for saving tax. But the way we like to think about things is you buy the asset for continual growth, right? For never-ending cash flow. So then you can use that to continue to buy your second, third, fourth property, etc. So yes, you can make tax-free income, but why do that? Why save money on tax when you can make money
basically
indefinitely? So one of the ways that I think I do that, so that's part of the benefits when property is done right, is that you can buy a property that you understand will grow based on the demand of the area that you've purchased in, and other aspects as well, like looking for a property with an edge. I mentioned this in a video recently where it's like some properties in a specific area will have an edge over other properties in that same area. Could be that it's a corner block, could be that it's got a really good floor plan, could be that it's got high ceilings. Things like this give you an edge in the market. So they're just a few examples of many, but I would look for properties that do have some sort of edge within a good location.
I think another mistake that people do make, however, like I like your example of the primary residence and having a tax saving and things like that, but far too often people jump into buying properties without understanding how they will be able to scale with that property. See, the misconception here is that people think that by having a good job, by having a high-paying job, that they'll be able to afford more properties and build out their, scale out their portfolio. But that's not true. If you do it that way, you'll forever be working for your properties. The idea is to get the properties to work for you. So when the properties are working for you, then that's a lot more sustainable, scalable strategy. The thing about, if in that method, right, like if in that method you generate a whole heap of equity, like that's great, but your serviceability hasn't increased. Oh, I guess you did rent it out, I guess, but that'll depend on the purchase price too. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to think about whether the purchase price as well as the income that you're generating, plus the uplift that you're doing, is going to then give rise to a property that you can purchase, I don't know, within the 6 months or within the year after that. That's the thing. And I think that's like the tax savings are great. I think that's why what you said before is really important. It's like, don't buy properties just for a tax saving. Tax saving should be a secondary benefit, because the fact that you have to pay tax means that you've already made money. If you made money, great. That's why you're paying tax. Tax isn't a bad thing. The best day of your life is when you write a $2 million check to the ATO, because it means you made $4 million that year. Who is complaining? Nobody's complaining with making $4 million that year. So that's the thing. So tax saving is a secondary benefit, but predominantly, and look, if people must have a primary place of residence, then that's then they have to go for it. But even with that, there's house hacking availability as well. There's obviously the renovation that could then uplift it as well. And I think renting it out is actually a very good option as well. Now, obviously with all these tax ideas and tax benefits, obviously consult a professional for it. This is not the place to get your tax advice. All right, this is all for educational purposes only. But I'd say that's a really good strategy too. But coming back to my initial point is to have scale in mind when you buy any properties. Do not ever buy properties thinking that, oh yeah, I'll buy this and I'll roughly have an idea of renting it out and I'll roughly go up by X%. It's silly. So there is that. The next thing I want to share is the topic of LMI. Okay, just my thoughts on LMI. That's something that I would do differently. There was a couple of properties that I turned down because I didn't want to pay LMI. Now, here's the thing. LMI is what? Like, how much do they charge these days? About 2% of their acquisition. Yeah, exactly right. So if you're going for a $500,000 property, LMI is what?
It's about 2%. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, about 2%.
And it gets capitalized into the loan, right? It does increase the price at the beginning, but you're paying an interest on that, which means if in your first year, if the property goes up by 5%, only 5%, which is, I don't know, basically the average property growth in the last 30 years in Australia. So if you bought an average property, it went up by 5%, in your first year, you'll be making $25,000. And you're going to sit and cry about paying $10,000 extra, which you're paying 6% on that. 6% on $10,000 is what? So the first year you'll be paying $600, and you pay $600 to make $25,000. You know what I mean? You made an entry into the market that's going up. In my opinion, I think LMI, depending on the deal, right? If you bought a stock, if you bought a property that goes down in value, right? It depends on the type of properties you buy. If you buy a property that goes down in value, well, then don't pay LMI. That's stupid. But if you buy a property that does go up in value, well, great. Because you just paid, you just got yourself LMI that gets you extra money in your pocket, right? Then if the stock is right, I wouldn't be afraid of LMI. But there's so much misnomer out there, and including myself back when I started, is that, oh, LMI is a bad thing because you pay extra. But not necessarily the bad thing.
Yeah, dude, I completely agree with that. It's like if you can buy, for example, a $500,000 property and you understand the supply and demand of that specific area and the property itself, and you could say with confidence that it's going to go up by 5% within the next 12 months or even 6 months, depending on how strategic you are. You know, that's going to well and truly pay off the cost of that LMI. It's a no-brainer in my opinion. It's like a matter of buying the right asset, not a matter of trying to avoid and save the costs. It's a scarcity mindset, which is really the core root of the problem.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I would lean into a bit more, knowing what I know now, is regional property. Now, a lot of people don't like the idea of regional property, but the proof is in the data. So what we've seen over the last 12 months, the highest performing suburbs have been regional. There is demand in like capital cities as well, like those fringing suburbs. But typically it's on average, like if we had to get an average property in that area, it's probably not going to be as much as as sniping a really good property in a regional suburb that has like amazing growth, like 20% plus, 15% plus. Like, yeah, you might get 8% in 1 year with a property in a capital city. That's great. But like, if you know what you're doing,
absolutely.
The benefits are in your favor.
You gotta find undervalued, underappreciated properties rather than going to properties, areas where everyone knows that it's good already. And when we say regional, we don't mean absolute whoop regional where there's literally like 2 people living in a town. No, that's not what we mean. But there is strategic and amazing growth to be had. And the greatest thing about young people investing in the properties is that they got time on their side anyway. So going into a more affordable location like your slightly regional locations are going to be extremely advantageous when it comes to that long-term growth as well. Which then leads to my last point that I wanted to raise up is another thing that I would really focus on if I was to have my time again is to focus on cash flow. Now, when I say cash flow, people think that he must mean just go and chase the highest rents. Absolutely not, because there are high yielding properties that will do absolutely bugger all when it comes to equity growth as well. So when it comes to cash flow, having equity grow on your property, which you can refinance the cash out, is still cash flow as well. So you want not only cash flow through rental, but you also want cash flow through equity as well, which is so pivotally important in being able to contribute towards your next property. The thing is this, it's so interesting because people think that, I got to only do one strategy. I got to do just buy something and I'll hold it and it'll give me the income. It'll grow up in value and then boom, that's when I'll be able to then buy the next property. Or I'll be able to over time have my promotion so that I can have a higher income, be able to buy the next property. The thing is, you got to stack multiple strategies together, but what's ultimately going to give the boost in all of these strategies is going to be the cash flow. Why don't people focus on cash flow when they buy their first property? Blows my mind. Why don't you know how much money that is going to pay you every week when you buy the property? Why don't you know the general outlook on the growth of that property over the next year, 2 or 3 years? Why don't you know what are the common factors? What are the real factors that are going to be then generating that gentrification and growth in the area? You need to know these things. Chase after these things. Don't buy just because you think it's a good place to buy, but buy because the metrics and the numbers are lining up. So focus on cash flow from early on. And if there's cash flow that could be added onto your income, then your serviceability will increase. Then your equity growth, your the time that it takes to build a deposit for the next house is going to be quicker and quicker as well. And that's going to get you to your second and third property, which will then make the subsequent property acquisitions a lot easier. So that's what I would say I would really, really focus on if I were to have my time again. And it's really only when I started focusing on that is when I truly started to experience unstoppable growth in my property portfolio.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, man. It's like all those things, yeah, it's all relevant. Be humble, do your research, understand supply and demand. Don't be scared to buy far away from where you live if it means it's going to perform well. Talk to agents, get a mentor, and investigate new strategies that'll work for you. That's basically how I summarize.
And with that, thanks for tuning into today's episode of Young Money Hackers. Really appreciate that you guys are here. Make sure you guys subscribe. Go check us out on Instagram. Send us a DM if you have any questions. And let's connect. See you later. Peace out.
Cheers, guys. Take it easy. Peace.